Hi, back again. I got cut off before. So, continued on the injustice. I suppose this could be like a counseling session. People feel free to comment or, um, reach out to me. And so, going back, so my ex husband has never had any mental health evaluations. He is not a citizen of the United States. He's almost been deported at least 3 or so times for like selling drugs, for his other violent crime with his prior significant other, and then with me and my daughters, because my daughters were also victims of that crime too. So we have a trial coming up. I'm scared. I don't even know why we have a trial. I haven't done anything. I have been accused of having a mental health issue. I don't have. What I have is a serious case of injustice issue, a case of my children being taken out of my home, a case of my 14-year-old now I haven't talked to in 3 months, and I haven't seen in almost a year, and there's absolutely no reason for it. A case of now I only get to see my 10-year-old 4 hours a week. And now I went back and I asked my lawyer, I was like, please fix the order when the social worker made it wrong, because it never said I couldn't go to their school and exercise my joint legal rights and my custodial rights as a parent. What all I did was talk to the principals and the teachers. So they just corrected it about a few weeks ago and only corrected it for my youngest daughter so that I could go to her gymnastics. But they left my oldest daughter completely out of there. So the law of the state is that CPS is supposed to put families back together, but that's not what they do. That's not what they've done in my case. And there's got documents to prove it. The judge never should have passed her initial order to completely ban me from their schools because I didn't violate the order that he had already written. He never should have passed that. He keeps just passing them whatever she writes. It's like whatever she writes, no one questions. She just passes it. And so who's the one that has to, this is my second lawyer now. I had a private attorney to begin with. It's very expensive, very fast. And I mean, who has to pay for their mistakes but me? There are constant mistakes and they side. And then, I mean, even from the get-go, the guardian ad litem had never talked to me and was right away in court. Like, I think the girls should not see their mom at all. Could someone tell me why that would be? Because what did I do to my children? She's going off the claims that my ex-husband had, that the initial investigation found no evidence to prove at all. That's what the letter says. And so there's no reason why this case even went this far. There's no reason why even her opinion matters at this point, or the social workers, because there are no findings for this case. It's like building a house without a foundation. It's the same exact thing. So can we see, I have been very angry and I've been very vocal about it, and we can see why. I tried to send a letter to the judge and to explain to him and because there's a barrier between us. And it's like, he seems like a good, logical person that would understand the logic, and a parent coming to them calmly and saying, look, there are no findings in this case. I have serious concerns about this and it keeps moving forward. And I keep trying to talk to the social worker. And then I tried to talk to the social worker's supervisor and I showed her the letter and she's like, what's this? She's like, well, this is some Amanda lady. That's not Song. And I said, it's a CPS worker with your department. It's the initial investigation to the case that Song, the current social worker, is working on. And it says there are no findings of abuse or neglect. There is no evidence to support the claims that Todd or anyone else said on the initial claims. So that's what it says. It says there's no case. So why do you have a case? Why are we going forward with this? Why did we ever have an initial hearing date? And her supervisor just started getting upset with me and fussing. Was like, why did you call this meeting? I never called the meeting. Song set it up. But Song sat there quietly and let her supervisor go at it with me. And her supervisor just escalated the entire situation and then told me, well, go talk to your counselor. Because I'm asking them, why would you take my kids out of my home? You don't have a case. There's a letter right here from one of your social workers employed by your department that says there are no findings and there's absolutely no reason that my children were taken out of my home or to continue the case. And the lady screamed at me and I was like, right there, that's a civil rights violation. You are being prejudiced against me because of what you think, what you're trying to say. I have a mental health issue when I don't have a mental health issue. That was already proven. And even if I did, it's not a reason to take the children out of my home. And even Song said that on the phone. She said, I said, you know, you're giving a really bad, like for parents out there that might think there's a stigma on mental health, you know, people are trying to break that stigma down. But now if parents think that they have mental health and they need to get treated for it, or if their ex-husband might find out about it, especially if it's an abusive ex-husband, that he's going to do this to them and then CPS is going to take their kids away. And she said, we have thousands of cases in CPS and we haven't taken their kids out of their home. And I said, then why have you taken my kids out of my home? And she was completely silent. So again, this is the injustice. This is what I'm angry about. And then to watch me literally be eliminated out of my daughter's lives and their lives go on. And I'm just sitting here alone and trying to rebuild my life and trying not to cry every day and trying to find somewhere where something makes sense and people that actually do their job right and make sense of it and follow the law. Because it's like no one, I've tried to talk to supervisors. I tried to send a letter to the judge that was intercepted by his court clerk and given to the county attorney and to the social worker, which was then turned on me. And that's when they filed a motion to sever my parental rights. So now their motion is saying that I wasn't complying with Hennepin County Child Protection, which I was. I completed the MMPI right away in July, end of June, July of last year, right after the case was opened up. They got that information. Of course, they wanted to provide their collateral, which even though in the initial investigation was already found to be irrelevant and not factual and not fact-based and not true. So here I've been through all this torment and hell and then, I can't even get into details. Then my ex-husband and the social worker, I talked to them over the weekend and my ex-husband's dangling like me initially talking to the girls on the phone over my head. And then if I would say one wrong word, he'd be like, oh, no, now you just can't talk to them and hang up the phone. And then call the police on me and be like, she got upset. Because I'd call and he'd be like, okay, we're moving the girls' schools. I'm like, what? I'm still here. I'm still their parent. You can't just do this stuff. You can't just one day do this. So I had the police coming to my door every other day. Finally, the police broke into my apartment, broke my lock, and then illegally got leasing information from my office, which never should have been given out. And the police know better that they can't ask for that. They didn't have a warrant. They have no legal right to do that. It's another civil rights violation. But here's the thing. So they gave that information to my ex-husband. Now, would you want your ex-husband to go to your current apartment? Because I had just sold my house and relocated an hour away. So my daughters and I were renting, or I was renting with my daughters. Would you want your ex-husband to go to your apartment, have the police go there and get when you're moving, your lease end date, and give it to your ex-husband? No, of course not. No one would, especially if that ex-husband has admitted to having a vendetta against you, has for years destroyed you in every way he could by not paying for daycare and getting you kicked out of daycare. So then you subsequently, it's hard to go to work when you can't pay and you're only paying by yourself and you're a single parent. He also denied that my daughter had a vision problem. He denied reading the test results on the doctor's notes. So wouldn't allow my daughter to move out of a Chinese immersion school, which was very, very hard for her with all her given things that we've had to deal with, which a lot of she's overcome. But at the time, she needed to move to an English-speaking school. He fought me on that for 2 years. It was literal facts. I had facts. from doctors and tests, hours of tests and facts. And the treatment that she did, he never came to the doctor. He fought me on it for 2 years. I finally moved their school, and then he got a court order that I had to move back to the Chinese school. So by the time then we had to go see a parenting consultant. And we saw the parenting consultant, and he was like, this is what you've been fighting over? Of course she should move schools. She can't read in Chinese. She has all these different vision conditions. It's going to even be hard for her to read in English. It's common sense. It's what two co-parents who have both have normal brain functioning could figure out. But because he has this insane need for power and control and to be a dictator and not do anything, and this is all proven in court. This is all proven in documents. There are 5 judges in Ramsey County that have gone through this with us. We have been in and out of court basically about every other 2 to 4 months for the last 9 years, essentially. It's usually for him trying to lower child support or some other issue like that. Or he got us kicked out of the daycare for non-payment, even though he was making close like $80,000 a year. He claimed he couldn't pay for daycare. So we got kicked out. This has been our journey. So finally that parenting consultant had to be like, yes, she can absolutely move to an English speaking school. What parent wouldn't do that for their child? If she's not, it's going to be hard enough to read in English, and you want her to read in Mandarin Chinese in an accelerated curriculum as a second language for a child that's already going to have to work in therapy just to learn English in her, initial language. It doesn't work for every child. It's great for some kids, but not when we had what we were dealing with. So I had to go through a whole court process and fight just for things that are common sense and logic to normal people. For him, it's just like he enjoys the fight. He enjoys arguing. He enjoys having power. He enjoys trying to win. He enjoys having power over me. He enjoys watching me hurt. He wanted me dead. It's like these are basic things. And then the CPS trying to be like, how does this domestic violence even matter in this? It's a continuation of his violence. How do you not understand that? How are you working in family court with families in this day and age and not realize that? There's a power and control wheel, and it clearly states, and it goes around. You can look on like the national domestic violence power and control wheel. It clearly states using children as a weapon or against the mom. Convincing the children that the mom is crazy. That's parental alienation. That's grounds for him to lose all of his parenting rights. There is financial, which has happened even when we were married. I would get in trouble for buying shampoo that was too expensive or just ridiculous things, but he could spend anything he wanted, any amount. And then there's emotional, which happens. Before we met, I lived on my own. I was in college. I traveled. I was very independent. I always have been my whole life. But then suddenly, after being with him, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and things, I knew things were not healthy, and this wasn't the relationship. He kind of changed, and just the emotional stuff happens where like what you want is not important. Like for example, I would ask him, "Can you go get me a Coke?" So he'd come home with like a orange soda, and he'd be like, "I'm like, where's the Coke?" Well, it's pop. Okay, but that's not what I asked for. It was little things like that, but it's just that small, but they add up. And then, because then you finally get to the point where to survive, you have to give up everything you want and just go with whatever leftovers or whatever he gives you. That's essentially how their relationship was. So it's like, he'd always tell me over and over again, you can never survive on your own. And that's how they get you. That's how they trap you. That's the power and control. And then when they lose control, what happens is that it spirals out of control, like with his girlfriend before me. And then like they try and intimidate you physically by keeping you in, like harming you, or in my case, with a weapon. And we already had at the time self-divorce papers because he was dealing with drug issues. He refuse to get help. I tried to get him help. I went to his parents to ask for help. That's when his mom told me, oh, he has problems like this at the end of relationships. That's not normal. That's called domestic violence. That's called losing power and control over someone. So, as you can imagine, I am just beside myself and sad. I am really sad. In 2016, 2017, I was the PTO president at my daughter's middle school. It's so much fun. I also was the fundraiser. So we planned as a team, just a small PTO, like teacher, the principal, maybe 4 or 5 other parents, big fundraising events. And the girls would come with me and I'd lead the meeting, and it was so much fun. I love having them see me as an example, leading and doing things and making things happen and being that example for them. And they'd come with, and Ella Rose would have ideas for her school, and then she got to hear about what's really going on with her school. And then in the fall, I went to a fundraiser and I got to go to her lunch to kind of like introduce it, and because they had a school fundraiser. And all her little friends ran up to me and gave me a hug, and Ella Rose, and she's like, "Mama, I love you. I'm so happy you're here." Because I thought maybe she would be embarrassed of me, but she wasn't. So she ran up to me and gave me a huge hug, and her friends, and they were like waving from the audience. And I mean, those are the things I love. And I'd go to lunch and volunteer at Alilia's school and give her a little hug and get to walk her back to her classroom and give her a kiss and be like, "Okay, do a good job," you know? I just love those girls. They're both amazing. They're amazing in a lot of the same ways and a lot of different ways. And I love them, and there's nothing else I want to do. I want to be their mom. And this whole situation is frustrating is not a good word. Angering is not a good word. There's just no law to it. And when I asked the supervisor at CPS, I was like, "You guys don't follow the law." She's like, "Well, we don't know the law." And I said, "Well, clearly you don't, because you have no foundation for your house, but you're building a house that you're saying and accusing me of, which is defamation of my character. Because to take someone's kids out of someone's home is pretty, really serious. And that means that you've been hurting them, like, violent or being violent, which I haven't. And another fact is that even in Hennepin County Child Protection, they will even put children back in the home with the parent that has put bruises on them or has sexually abused them. They do put children back in those homes. So I haven't done any of that. They have no evidence of any of the claims from the initial report. And that's what this letter of no findings is. And on the next video, I'll have it ready. So I haven't done any of that. So why are we moving forward? Why are we having a trial? Why have my children been taken out of my home? Why have I been completely severed from my oldest daughter? Why am I not allowed to go to her events? Why is she afraid of me? When 2 weeks before we went on a camping trip, I mean, we've always been really close. I have videos, I have pictures, everything to prove it. We also had, she had a big sister from big sister in her home since she was like about 8 years old. We're very close with. She's a graduate from Penn State. She works for some of the like top companies. She's a very, very nice young lady. Well, now she's a mom. But we've known her since 2013. She's been in our home. She's a trained mandated reporter. One of my really good friends is a social worker. I've known her for 20 years. She's a trained mandated reporter. I was a teacher. This is the funny thing. When they did this investigation and took the kids out of my house, I worked with 100 kids every day in a very good school district. I was also a mandated reporter trained by the state of Minnesota. Also, what else? Domestic abuse project. I looked at going to counseling there with my girls to kind of help them understand what domestic violence is and how abusers hurt people, because sometimes it's very subtle. And like with my daughter, it had just happened where my ex-husband wouldn't allow them to come to my parenting time and blocked my daughter from leaving her house with his arm, like physically. And then she walked by him and then he like slammed the door on her back. And we were both very afraid given the history. And now Lilia was with her stepmom and they were coming home from out of town. But Todd was trying to make Ella Rose do her chores before she went to my house. It's my parenting time. You chose to go out of town on your parenting time. So now you're going to punish her and me for that? This is where he gets these weird things where like, this has to be done right now, these weird tics. So this went on for a week. Then he wouldn't allow her to go to her friends. The next time she came over on a Wednesday, he was like, the first thing you're doing is your chores. He brought her, again, they brought them out of town for the weekend. So how is it her fault? Why is he angry? I mean, why does this spiral out of control? So then I get text from her. I was actually at the women's support group and talking about that and how we were both afraid. We both were like, I was like, okay, Ella Rose, can you go up to the door and get Lilia? She's like, no, I'm afraid. You go up there. So I went up there, and then it's just, so then I try and stick up for her and talk on the phone, and I'm like, Todd, let her go to her friend. She didn't do anything. You brought her out of town. You're the reason why her chores weren't done. It's not like she just sat there all weekend and didn't do anything. You physically brought her to another house so she couldn't complete the chores. And now you're making a big stink out of it and punishing her for it. It's not fair. And this stuff like this went on all the time. And she'd always say, Mom, I'm treated unfairly over there. They're really hard on me. They're mean to me. Like, Dad will make me cry for things like that. And then I'll walk away and I'll come back and he'll be like nothing ever happened. Like, oh, how are you? Da, da, da. And she's like, and I'm still sore from how he treated me before, but he acts like it never happened. I said, Ella Rose, I know I've been there. I know that. And so that's when, because the day he was throwing around furniture in our house and it hit my youngest daughter, he called 10 minutes later and was like, oh, hi, how was your day? And I was on the phone. I'm like, are you serious right now? You just left the house, first of all, and you were throwing furniture around and you hit our youngest, Lilia, in the head. And I had to cover her with my body because you were throwing the ottoman and the other chair around and everything. He's like, oh, well, I was just looking for my keys. No, you tore apart the house. We were all scared and you hurt your child. And I had to cover her with my body. And that's how he dismisses everything. He just dismisses his actions. They're not his. They're not as serious. And I'm not taking the blame for it anymore. I'm not playing the victim. I have been fighting for years. I've been doing things. I've been advocating for myself and for my daughters. I've talked to people. It's just the fact that he has a lot of these father's rights people that support him. And it's really disgusting. Like, why would you support domestic violence? Well, they don't believe in domestic violence. Really? Is that why women and children die every year at alarming rates still in this country? There's facts to prove it. How can you not believe in domestic violence? How could you not believe me? No one can make this stuff up. This isn't stuff you just dream up. I dream up fairy tales. I dream up fantasies of going on trips and flying all over and doing this stuff with my daughters, not violence and bad, negative things. I'm a very happy, positive person, but right now I am very, 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 very upset at how things have happened and how they've progressed, and that I don't have my children, that he's being rewarded for bad behavior once again, and that things have not changed in this state of Minnesota, and that this system in Minneapolis and St. Paul, which is supposed to be a very great place for women to live, which I have found to be different, why he's being rewarded for bad behavior. And this is an example for other men and other women. Other men can look at this and be like, oh, so if I try to kill a woman, I'll get the kids. Perfect. Because then I can call her crazy and people will believe her. Why don't I do that? And, and then we can claim, put a prejudice and on mental health and take kids away. And then people are going to think, oh, that's going to happen if I go and admit to mental health or get medication, which I don't have. Well, I have anxiety. Well, in this case, of course I'd have anxiety. Who wouldn't have anxiety? You've taken my children. You've given my abuser and their abuser, a person who I've had to literally use my body to protect them and everything else, everything, all my power, money, everything to protect him in court. You've given them. I mean, I worry about them every single minute of every day, and I think about them. So this injustice is very, very hard. And I understand because there are a lot of parents going through this and they shouldn't have to. I do realize that CPS does help kids in bad situations because there are bad situations, sadly. And it makes me sad because I love children and they should have good childhoods and be happy and be childlike and not worry about adult things and meet bad, people that are going to hurt them. So there are cases where child protection is needed, but I've seen another case just like this where it's like the social workers they're not going off of the orders, and then judges are just signing off and not doing the due diligence to read the actual order and see that it doesn't match what the social worker is saying, or even to reach out to my attorney and to ask my attorney to ask me what happened before they sign the order. It's just that simple. I mean, do your due diligence, because this is really affecting my children, their long-term mental well-being, our society, and me, myself. So now I'm trying to put all the pieces back together. But so when my ex-husband had the police kept coming to my house to do well checks, even though I was never suicidal, a threat to myself or anyone else. So he got information from my leasing office, which he then gave to the social worker. Again, illegal. Does she call him out on that? No. Does she question that the police illegally got the information without a warrant? No. Does she file it in the court order in her notes? Yes, she did. She filed it in there. She put that I was moving as a way to use that against me, like you can't move or something. So this stuff has happened and people are like, don't talk about that. Don't play the victim. I'm not playing the victim. This stuff happened. It's documented in paper. It's documented and filed in court notes. How is that playing the victim? My children were taken out of my home wrongly with no findings of abuse or neglect. I'm not playing the victim. I am the victim. I have been victimized again by him. He has torn my family apart a second time when he shouldn't even be in the country. And then CPS has done this without anything warranting these actions. That does make me the victim. That is not playing the victim. So I hope that anyone else going through this stuff can relate, can know that you're not alone, or can reach out, because it kind of feels good to just get it out and to talk about it. I have all the documents to prove it. And, when you're dealing in things with life that are out of your control, it's very scary. And I'm dealing with a lot, and I'm trying to do the best I can and control everything. But sometimes people think they have a better idea for you. And people need to understand that. So they think I'm not playing the victim. You have victimized me. You have empowered an abusive human being that's been violent with more than 4 or 5 American citizens, because he was violent with his ex-girlfriend and a friend, a guy friend of hers too. So there's me, my 2 daughters who were home at the time of the crime that he was convicted for. It was a felony of terroristic threats, which was reduced with a stay of adjudication for 2 years if he didn't have anything similar. As far as I know, on his background check, he also said he had another road rage incident that he was in a workhouse for back in 2013, I think. That was on his report. So it was another act of violence. And then before me, his girlfriend and her friend. I mean, so please tell me, if someone would like to, how I'm playing the victim, because all this stuff has an effect on people. You can't just act on people and then expect things not to happen. Like dominoes, it's like flicking the domino, taking the children out of my home. That flicks the dominoes, and then it goes. Be like, I mean, come on, really? Like, have some empathy for other people and how actions affect them. People's actions, like, it's like when you're kind to someone, when you give them something, that affects them. They're not playing the victim. It affects them. It affects their brain. It affects their heart. It affects their whole being. Same thing. If you're mad at them and you yell at them, it affects them in every way. If you take their children out of their home for no reason, without any forms of abuse or neglect, and just violently, and like I at my daughter's event, my ex-husband had 3 squad cars there. I was her room mom. I communicated with her teacher basically every week, and I had asked about helping out at that event. When I get there, the teacher was blocking me and my daughter, like I was going to harm her. And my ex-husband had 3 squad cars there. 3. For no reason. I wasn't a threat to anyone. I didn't do anything. So I have been the victim in this case because I've tried to stand up for myself, but it hasn't worked so far. And it's injustice, and it's a form of violence via the court system. And people know this within domestic violence and divorcing parents. And so anyways, that's that. I'm going to get to bed, do some other things. Thanks for letting me share, and please comment below, join my page, or share. Thank you. Have a good night.